Dear friends, a warm welcome from the European Movement's offices here in Brussels for the 5th edition of Talking Europe, organized in partnership with the European Commission. For this first event of the year, we want to kick off by having a conversation with Themis Christophidou, who is the Director General for Education, Youth, Culture and Sport, a very big portfolio that covers areas that have been very affected by the current pandemic and the lockdown. Themis, thank you very much for joining us, taking the time. I know how busy things are and how important the work of the Commission in this area, so we're grateful that you are with us today. I'd like to start perhaps our conversation with touching a little bit on two of the aspects that have been really affected by the pandemic and the lockdown, youth and culture. Young people have had to suffer the brunt of the economic effects of the pandemic, a lot of them coming out of education or early in their professional career. They have seen a significant hardship over the past 12 months. The same applies to those in the cultural sector, performers, artists, creators that haven't been able to exercise their talents because of the lockdowns. There are a lot of things that the Commission has done over the last 12 months, together with member states and other European institutions to support both young people, but also those in the cultural sector. Can you take us through some of those things? How is the European Union helping young people and creators?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Petra. Thank you for this invitation. I'm happy to be here with you today, although I would have preferred to be in a room with you and see each other face to face rather than staring at my screen. But we have to do with what we have. I do agree with you that we live in unprecedented times and that their effect on all of us has been life-changing and very profound. As the Director General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture, I'm acutely aware of the difficulties young people all over Europe have faced as education has moved out of schools and higher education institutions to online platforms. The essential need to respect social distancing guidelines has also led to many of our cultural and performance venues closing their doors. This resulted in huge losses, both for the sector and for the individuals, all those who work in the creative and cultural industries. The European Commission is doing its best to help the Union adapt to the numerous challenges the COVID-19 pandemic has raised. 2020 has really been a year where we started realizing the scale of the challenge we face. Though we're not yet out of the woods, 2021 can be a year of hope as we put in action new policies, tweak other policies, and in some cases seize new opportunities to rebalance and update our policy priorities. I'm thinking particularly of how we strive to help young people in education thanks to the European Education Area and the European Universities Initiative, which is a paradigm shift in higher education. There are also novelties and new opportunities in the Erasmus program as it evolves with the times to become more inclusive, more digital, and more green. We also have the European Solidarity Corps, which has now a new budget, a bigger budget, that will allow us to offer young people volunteering and solidarity opportunities, not only all over Europe, but excitingly beyond Europe. I think that one never realizes something is important until it's taken away. And this applies absolutely to our culture sector. The cultural and creative sector is part of who we are, our European identity. That is why it's even more important for us to support artists during these difficult times. And we want to make the best use of our Creative Europe program to offer the support our cultural institutions need, as well as new ways to encourage artist mobility. As I'm sure you're aware, the European Commission has been working hard to find solutions to help European citizens. The EU's long-term budget, coupled with the Next Generation EU, is the largest stimulus package ever financed through the EU. A total of 1.8 trillion will help rebuild the post-COVID Europe. These are amounts that we can't even contemplate the size of, but it's something never seen before. It is our collective responsibility to help Europe stand on its own feet again. And it is in moments of crisis, indeed, that the value of the European cooperation is mostly reaffirmed. This has been no different in DG EAC, in the fields of education, youth, sport, and culture. We owe it to the 100 million learners and teachers who have been tested during this period. We owe it to the young people who are striving for a better future and who have to have the right to never stop dreaming. We owe it to the millions of artists and to our talented athletes who cannot practice their passion as events are cancelled every day. So I'm eager to discuss with you, to hear your questions, to share your thoughts. Now, if I focus on the artists to start with, and then I'll go to the young people, what have we been doing for the cultural sector? First of all, we have a new Creative Europe program. And we need to start by everybody recognizing the role of the cultural and creative sectors as a very relevant economic sector. Eurostat data of 2018 suggests that culture means around 8.7 million jobs, representing 3.8% of total employment across the EU. This is something that is not heard enough, that is not said enough. The cultural sectors have been amongst the first to suffer from the outbreak of COVID-19. And they most probably, unfortunately, will be the last ones to be able to resume their regular activities once the containment measures are lifted or relaxed. This crisis has therefore already put millions of artists and small companies under existential threat. I'm pleased that for the new Creative Europe, we managed to secure a considerable budget increase for this program, as the cultural and creative sector needs help to weather the crisis. These funds will also allow the sector to become stronger and more resilient. What is new for 2021-27? As a continuation of our current very successful pilot, iPortunus, the Commission will make individual mobility of artists and creative professionals a constant feature of the new program. Cultural organizations will continue to receive support for their transnational creative projects, tackling societal questions and the social, economic, or international role culture can play. Furthermore, the program will introduce and strengthen a more specific sectoral approach regarding certain creative sectors, such as the music, the books, architectural sectors, where artists and professionals will be able to train and organizations will be able to build up capacity in order to meet the current challenges, among them, obviously, digitization. Now, during the last months, what did we concretely do for the creative sector? We accelerated funding for cooperation projects under Creative Europe to assist the cultural sectors most in need. This way, we were able to disperse 49 million euros much faster than we would have done usually. And moreover, we made available funding for literary translation schemes. Under Erasmus, we went also to work for the culture sector through Erasmus. We launched an extraordinary call for cooperation partnerships. This way, we infused 100 million euros into projects that support creativity and link education to youth stakeholders with our cultural and creative sector grassroots organizations. We don't forget the European capitals of culture have been heavily hit. The ones of 2020 have hardly had any chance to take place. So we amended the timing of their programming, allowing the 2020 capitals Rijeka in Croatia and Galway in Ireland to extend their year as European Capitals of Culture until end of April 2021. And we're enabling the 2021 cities to postpone their Capital of Culture seasons to 2022 or 2023. All this to give them more space and time to prepare their programs after the peak of the crisis is behind us. We quickly found ways to give cultural stakeholders a space to share and find support. The Creatives Unite is a platform which is a good example for that. It has been very well received by the sectors. We have 27,000 users already. The platform is constantly developing additional features, and its users have also already held a conference with Commissioner Maria Gabriel and the European Parliament. Another example is an online platform bringing together the Ministries of Culture and the European Commission to be constantly exchanging information in relation to the cultural sectors and the corona pandemic in the EU. We've also activated social media with our spring campaign, Creative Europe at Home, to motivate people to be creative whilst confined. And the summer campaign Europe's Culture Close to You, encouraged people to discover natural and cultural treasures close to their homes, featuring physical and digital offers supported by the EU and our partners. We also have horizontal measures that the Commission has taken across the board, the European Solidarity Instrument, the temporary framework of state aid. And with our colleagues across the whole Commission departments, we are working together to make sure that the Recovery and Resilience Facility will be at the service also of the culture sector, as well as the new cohesion policy to support as much as we can. Petro, this was in a nutshell what we've done for the culture sector. You want us to move on to the EU?
It's very comprehensive, and I just wanted to intersect a moment before we move to discuss the youth, because it's clear how much the EU is doing, as I said, together with member states. And the crucial bit here is that culture is usually the one thing that helps us get out of crisis. But in this particular case, culture has been the one affected the most. In your interactions with both stakeholders from the cultural world, but also with artists themselves, what is the sense you pick up? How resilient is the sector? How are they adapting to the current pandemic? We've seen a lot of things take place over digital means, like a conversation. We've seen concerts, we've seen theater performances. We've seen also ordinary people picking up a guitar and singing to each other to lift their spirits. Is that something you're picking up also in your work with artists in the cultural sector?
Absolutely. As I said, this platform we created, and which has 27,000 users in a few months, showed how much the sector, the artists, had the need to connect with each other. And as you said, during all these months of confinement, we saw very much how from singing on balconies and thanking the medical staff to organizing online concerts, theater plays, how much the actors themselves were expressing and transmitting their need for creativity, and how much it helped us, it filled our souls and our minds, and it helped us get along this difficult time. And we still need them. This is why we mobilized in order to try to give them the tools, because of course artists were not all, IT geeks or didn't have the financial means to get themselves the latest equipment in order to go online. But we've tried to help in any way we could for that, so that we give them this chance to express themselves online. Of course, nothing replaces the physical interaction with art, and it's very sad to see museums that are closed and theaters that are empty. And I often ask myself why I can go to the supermarket but I cannot go to a museum. These decisions are tough, I know, and there are many factors taken into account, but I do hope that we will be able soon to see our museums opening again and to be able to go to the theater or to the cinema or to a concert, even, of course, keeping the distances and taking all the measures. But if I can take a plane, I'm sure I can sit in a theater or walk through a museum. So I do hope we will see life coming back into our cinema rooms, our theaters, our museums.
That's very true. And as ancient Greeks used to say, we need a healthy body, but we also need a healthy mind and a healthy soul. And the art is crucial in that respect. Before we move to our next question, obviously the work the Commission does is very important, but I think also stakeholders are contributing considerably. I'm thinking Europa Nostra or JESAC, the European Association of Societies of Authors and Creators, both of them parts of the European movement, but also both of them at the forefront of working with you and working with creators, artists on cultural heritage and other issues. How do you see their role in all this? How have they been able to step up, help their members, and work with you to find solutions to the crisis?
These are obviously valuable partners, and their input is always pressure. And we work hand in hand with them and with the other stakeholders. Take architects, take play, theater, as you say, cultural heritage. All these stakeholders with whom we work, music, are very valuable and give precious input. And often they are there to push us to do more. And they know that we appreciate this pressure because it's always well meant and well intended, and their input is valuable because they are closer to their members and they know what their members' needs are, and they convey these needs to us. Of course, they also have a role of a pedagogical role towards their membership because they, working so many years close with the European institutions, they also understand the constraints, the institutional, the financial, the legal constraints, and they are best placed to explain to their membership all these constraints, and together to bridge the needs of the members and our capacity to act and to make a better marriage of the two. We work a lot on simplifying our procedures, on making them more user-friendly, on addressing the needs where they are, and because it's easy to imagine from Brussels, or to think that we imagine from Brussels where the needs are, but I'm very much aware that our imagination has its limits, and so it's precious to have these organizations that make clear to us what the real picture on the ground is. So I value a lot their input, and we work with them hand in hand.
Indeed, and so do we. Perhaps that's a good opportunity to move and look at the work you're doing to help young people, both those in education, but also those in the early stages of their career. You mentioned the new Erasmus program, you mentioned the European education area. Can I invite you to elaborate a little bit on the novelties of the Erasmus program and how has this been utilized to support young people who have really have been affected disproportionately by the pandemic and by the lockdown and financial crisis?
Mm-hmm. Now, if you take the Erasmus program, it is a jewel, a precious jewel in itself, and it's also a tool through which we implement our policy. So if I put first the framework, the policy for you, so that I can explain how the policy needs Erasmus as a tool. The European education area is a space where we need to imagine where everybody has access to quality education and inclusive education. A space where we can easily move across borders for learning purposes, whether we've graduated from high school, from university, whether we've done a traineeship, whether we're doing vocational training, whether we want to collaborate with other professionals. Imagine an area where spending time abroad to study and to learn is the norm, where school and higher education qualifications are recognized everywhere in Europe. You know that we've been talking about Bologna for more than 30 years, but we are not there yet in the EU. Imagine a space where everyone knows 2 languages in addition to their mother tongue. A space where people have a strong sense of their European identity and of Europe's cultural heritage and of its diversity. If we imagine all this, we're trying to build, together with the member states and with the education and training community, a genuine space of learning, the European education area. We have an ambitious agenda for education, and Commissioner Gabriel, who is Commissioner for Education and Research, has a strong vision on where we need to go, which direction to take. So we are talking about 6 dimensions of this education area. We're talking about quality, about inclusion and gender equality, about the green and digital transition, about teachers and trainers, about higher education, and of course, the geopolitical dimension of all this. Now, Erasmus is the tool to help us achieve these objectives. First of all, it's the most popular and the most loved European program, is the flagship program of Europe. And it's been with us for more than 30 years, and it's unanimously an enormous success. I haven't yet met an Erasmus student who hasn't said, literally, Erasmus changed my life. For the 2021-27 period, we will build on the success of the brand, and we will make it even bigger and even stronger. We have a new budget, almost double the budget. We've gone to 26 billion. We were around 14. This is a big success and a big recognition of the value of the program. So this program will be at the heart of this European education area agenda, and it will implement our European digital action plan and, of course, the bigger skills agenda. We expect that around 10 million individuals across the EU and beyond will be able to benefit from Erasmus Plus mobilities under the new program and spend time abroad learning and developing skills and competences to support their personal, their social, and their professional development. But most importantly now, we need to fund and to reach a wider variety of people and organizations in a more inclusive manner, socially inclusive, to include people with socioeconomic disadvantages or people with disabilities. This means, of course, adapting the level of financial support, but not only that, also introducing novelties like short-term and blended mobility, as well as virtual forms of cooperation. For the first time ever, by the way, the program will enable school pupils and other learners to carry out a mobility period abroad individually. Until now, it was only possible in groups. We're also making the program more accessible to smaller grassroots organizations like youth groups and sports clubs, so that we can reach people that need us the most and that can benefit from Erasmus the most. Now, the current crisis has made it clear that Erasmus needs to prepare individuals and organizations for the digital transformation. It needs to help support the competences of teachers and of learners to make smart and responsible use of digital tools. It needs to boost Europe's capabilities in forward-looking sectors like artificial intelligence, robotics, and of course, environmental engineering. This pandemic has also reinforced the need for more flexible learning formats, such as blended or virtual learning, Building on the success of our first digital opportunity traineeships, the scheme will be further expanded in the new program and will encompass vocational education and training learners, as well as academic teaching and administrative staff, to help all of them to acquire and develop their digital skills. Erasmus also has a responsibility and a substantial contribution to make to the European Green Deal. The program is synonymous to free movement of European learners, but it needs to lead by example and to encourage participants to use lower carbon means of transport as alternatives to flying. Erasmus funding should also be channeled to building knowledge and understanding of sustainability and climate action, so that young Europeans build the world-leading competences that we need in order to create sustainable societies, lifestyles, and economies. The program is, of course, a big driver of innovation in education and training, but also youth and sport. For example, the European Universities Initiative. Also, the vocational training. We want to create centers of vocational excellence, establishments offering vocational education and training that will act as drivers of excellence and innovation within this field. It's important to give the vocational training a more prestigious standing in the EU, and we're trying to do this with our centers of vocational excellence. And I go to what we call the European universities, if you have a second. This is really a paradigm shift in higher education, and we call it an initiative, but many of the academics that I talk to daily told me that we should be calling it a revolution. And you see, for any transformation, we need role models. So the 41 European universities, which are alliances of universities, this is what they're doing. They're role models. They are strong and long-term transnational alliances involving more than 280 higher education institutions of various size and types located all over Europe. They are revolutionizing higher education cooperation and enriching synergies between the European education area and the European research area, and leading to a real transformation of higher education. This is not just a project. It's an ambitious vision to build the universities of the future, to transform all levels of institutions, to develop long-term structural, sustainable, and strategic cooperation. This will apply to all the missions of the universities: education, research, innovation, and serving society. We will create European inter-university campuses where students, staff, and researchers enjoy seamless mobility, physical, virtual, or blended. They can study, they can train, they can teach, they can do research, they can work or share services at any cooperating partner institution. We are adopting a challenge-based approach to learning, teaching, and research. This means that European universities will be working via knowledge-creating teams composed of academics, researchers, public and private sector actors, and students from undergraduate level and above. And this is working together to tackle societal challenges. European universities must be inclusive. They must open up higher education to all learners, especially those who cannot follow the classical educational model, but who need flexible and modular programs to suit their personal situations, because they work, because they have families to take care of, because they cannot go away for an Erasmus of 6 months, but they may be able to do shorter term exchanges, some physical, some virtual. This is about learning from each other, sharing, co-developing, educational paths, curricula, research capacity, data, and infrastructure. And then other educational institutions will benefit from these partnerships. These are the core, the seed, but the idea is that all the 5,000 we are working with will benefit from that. These will be the pioneers on micro-credentials. Well, we need to improve quality assurance. We need to reach automatic recognition, as I said earlier. We want to end up with a European degree, a European student card, Erasmus without papers. So this is both about sustainability, but also about students' capacity to move all over Europe and not to have obstacles in their mobilities. We will, of course, learn a lot from this exercise. This is an exercise that is co-creative, that we're working with the European higher education institutions, and we will continue throughout 2021 in order to come to a higher education transformation agenda altogether. We are launching an online consultation in the coming weeks for this purpose, and I very much invite all of you to join, to share your views, to give us input, to help us get it right.
This is comprehensive indeed, and in many ways revolutionary, like you said. And it's important to also look into the future. We are clearly going through a very difficult time that we need to address instantly, but it's important not to forget the objectives that we have in creating this European educational area. The one thing I would like to perhaps come back to is the short term. We're not entirely sure when we will be able to travel again, when young people will be able to make the most of the freedom of movement that the EU in general and the Erasmus program in particular is affording them with. And one of our colleagues in Spain, Guimar, who from the European movement in Spain, is wondering how can young people make the most of Erasmus while the lockdown is in place. You mentioned some examples already, but if there was one thing you would like to stress, that would be welcome.
Thank you for this question. You know, the dilemma was, do we close down Erasmus until the borders open again or not? And I think the answer for us was immediate. No, Erasmus cannot stop. We just need to find ways to bypass COVID, if I can call that. We have to find ways to still give the possibility to students, to learners, to do their mobilities until they can do it physically. So we've adjusted our programs, we've given them extended deadlines, we made more flexible the programs that they were already participating in, so that they can do some of it online, some of it blended, until we can return back to physical. But it was for us clear that we are refusing to just close it down and say suspended, we see you in a year, because this was too precious for young people to continue. And I think that although nothing replaces the physical mobility, and the whole raison d'etre of Erasmus is to go to see the other, where the other one lives, still it was better to do virtual than to stop it totally. So I hope we have been able to address a part of the needs of the young people. Clearly it's not enough, but we are ready at any moment to pick up the pace and give them more. And we've extended deadlines so that they can maybe at the end of their mobility get a bit of a physical taste. So all in all, it was too big to let it freeze. That's how we felt.
Absolutely, and from our experience, I think young people have appreciated this. We have the pleasure of working with organizations like the European Youth Forum, the Erasmus Student Network, ISE, JEF, and other youth organizations who are on the front line of working with young people to ensure that they remain active as much as anything else, because the last thing we want is to see their future being stolen away because of what's happening at the moment. How much support have you received from those youth organizations, those wide networks and their members in your effort to ensure that Erasmus and other initiatives from the EU remain active and provide the service?
We are working very closely with the networks, with the European Student Network, with the Students' Union, with the Youth Forum. They are faithful partners, precious partners. We are in contact with them on a daily basis, I would say. They give us feedback. They challenge us, they push us, they are demanding, they have to be demanding. It's their job to be demanding. If youth isn't demanding, who would be? I have a 22-year-old daughter, and I can tell you they are demanding. But we're working hand in hand with them. My door is always open. My team is in touch with them at every level, on every occasion. We've done a lot of seminars with them, dialogues, exchanges. They send us input. We take it into account very loyally and religiously, I would say. So we count a lot of them, and a lot on them, and it's their maturity and their commitment is impressive. And what I love about this, and I always tell them, is that beyond what is Erasmus and what is culture program and all this, this is about them being responsible citizens that take in their hands their future, and that want to shape this future and not let old people like me decide for them, because the future is theirs and they have to have their hands in the making of it. And they are very mature, and they're actively doing this, and I'm in admiration for them. I don't think that at their age I had such awareness, so I'm impressed.
Indeed. I know we don't have a lot of time, and you need to leave us shortly. So perhaps the last thing I want to ask you is that often the best way to overcome an obstacle is to look beyond it, to have a vision for the future, an optimistic one. We are about to embark into the exercise of the Conference on the Future of Europe. What would be your one ambition for that conference? What will be your vision beyond the obstacle we are currently facing for Europe, for education, for culture, for young people, and for sport?
You know, if you give me a few seconds to do a flashback, when I took over my job 3 years ago, the first things I heard from member states colleagues were, welcome, congratulations, it's very nice to have you here, but you know, education and culture is not EU competence, is member state competence. So you know, you can support us, but also each one matters their own business. When COVID came, it was amazing to see how the ministers of culture, of education, of sport, of youth had an incredible need to be meeting online regularly in order to exchange on the difficulties, on how they're going to deal with the problems of the sports sector, of the cancelled events. The culture ministers, so much concern and pressure on all the artists that are affected so much. The education ministers, I can't describe to you, they met every month in the last 12 months in order to exchange who will close schools, who will open schools, who will partially open schools, how are they going to do it. So this showed that suddenly there was a need for Europe that nobody had ever evaluated and wanted to accept. And I think that this is the message that came out of this. And if in the discussion on the future of Europe, this is taken into account, this reality that they themselves faced and admitted with their recent intensified cooperation, if this is taken into account and is combined with the young people's passion and commitment to shaping their future, we're going to come out of it much stronger.
That is a wonderful, inspirational way to finish. I'd like to thank you very much. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για το χρόνο σας. It was a pleasure to have you with us. and we hope to have the opportunity to continue the conversation soon. But please carry on the important work you're doing, and thank you again for taking the time.
Εγώ ευχαριστώ πολύ. Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure and an opportunity to exchange with you and with your community, and with pleasure to come back again to talk about developments. All the best, and stay healthy. Bye.
And a big thank you to all of you for joining us from across Europe. We hope the conversation was interesting. You can replay it and rewatch it on our social media and on our website. And of course, please do stay tuned, because we'll have many more conversations together with the European Commission, bringing forward leaders from the EU institutions to inform, exchange views, and discuss with you everything that might be affecting. In the meantime, have a very good weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again. Bye.